I know everyone loves a good first-person shooter, but honestly, it's all about the third-person shooter in my book, and one of my favorites would probably go up and be like the Resident Evil franchise, but more importantly, Resident Evil 4. Because like that, you had like the over-the-shoulder camera, they were doing everything right, it was still terrifying, it was stepping away from zombies a little bit, but still one of the best Resident Evil games. And people always complain like, oh, you can't run and shoot, it's unrealistic. First of all, they're zombies, so it's not realistic. Second of all, that actually added to the terror. The fact that you're shooting this swarm of zombies in front of you, or whatever they were, in front of you, and at any time someone can come up from behind and just grab you or kill you, and it just gives you that whole, oh my god, and like you can't stay in one spot for too long. It was a good aspect of the game. Even Resident Evil 5, like, it might not be the best Resident Evil game, but it was a good third-person shooter action game for the same reason. You couldn't run, so if you're here shooting the bad guys in front of you, at any time you can get chainsawed by that stupid guy with the burlap sack. Just, yeah. Great. I loved it.
Best third-person shooters. Well, you know what we got to talk about right off the bat. I got to mention Star Wars Battlefront 2. I'm sorry, it's one of my favorite games, and it would be a travesty to talk about third-person shooters and leave this one off the list. So yeah, one of my favorite games of all time. It's a third-person shooter, and you press the view button, and it turns into a first-person shooter if you want it to. And then it can also turn into a third-person, you know, kill people with a f***ing Jedi lightsaber game and just slaughter them, or third-person, I'm in a giant f***ing AT-AT, so what's up now, bitch? Come at me, bro game. It's one of the best games of all time. And one of the best third-person shooters, certainly. Maybe not one of the best games of all time. Although, I don't know, it's certainly one of my favorites. So yeah, I gotta talk about that one. Maybe I'll shut up about Star Wars Battlefront 2. If you guys make a Star Wars Battlefront 3, then I can stop talking about the old one. Huh? LucasArts? Disney? What's up?
I think early on, one of my favorite third-person shooters was probably a game called Syphon Filter. So when I was younger, I really hated stealth games. And what this was you were sort of a Spec Ops soldier, which kind of implies stealth, but instead of being stealthy, you just murdered a bunch of people with machine guns and stuff. It was great. I don't actually remember the story or anything about it. I just remember that early on, it was one of the best third-person shooters out there. So Syphon Filter, way to go, you're awesome.
Moving on, Gears of War. It's iconic. It's the game where they've attached a chainsaw to a gun. They put a chainsaw on a gun. How do you beat that? You run around and chainsaw people in half, and the locusts are like blah, 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 as their blood flies everywhere, and it's just awesome. And then you could call down the Hammer of Dawn. It's like giant lasers. It's freaking awesome. It's Gears of War 2 I especially loved. You know, the co-op mode, you're playing with a buddy, or playing against a buddy, and chasing him around with the chainsaw, and they're like, no, don't chainsaw me. But you do. You do. You catch him with the chainsaw, and you cut him in half.
Of course, I'm gonna go to the Mass Effect franchise here, but like the first one, as the mechanics of a third-person shooter, not fantastic, but it came out a long time ago, so we'll look past it. 2 was much better. Personally, I'm gonna go with 3 just because of the map layout also. So like you can get your squad mates to kind of be one here, giving some suppressing fire, so that you can come around the side and actually flank the enemies from like the right or left. The AI was smart, so they'd actually do the same thing if you weren't setting up your team correctly. Plus, you have all your different abilities. It's just a good third-person shooter at the end of the day. The cover system, yes, could be a little bit better, but still much better than people like. So Inky likes to complain that the cover mechanic on it wasn't that great. No, he doesn't know what he's talking about. It was fantastic. The core gameplay for Mass Effect 3 was just phenomenal. I loved every moment of it, and the controls really helped.
Now, of course, if you're mentioning third-person shooters, you gotta mention Max Payne. Max Payne is just one of the best franchises. I mean, forget third-person shooters. It's one of the best franchises of all time in general. It's just such a great story. It's got this great noir feel to it, and it brought you bullet time. What's cooler than just like shooting people in a video game is doing it in slow motion. And it's affected so many games. You got, I mean, obviously the same people, but you got Red Dead Redemption with the Deadeye, and a lot of games have started incorporating bullet time into it. So you see the new game Watch Dogs, it's gonna have bullet time in it. So it's kind of all over the place now. So in addition to being influential, it was just a great game, and yeah, Max Payne.
And then there's a game, there was recently a standalone for this game, the Nazi Survival Pack or whatever it was, but Sniper Elite V2, the original is certainly on my list of favorite third-person shooters. Just the slow-mo X-ray shots, come on, man. You could shoot them in the head and their brains explode and pieces of skull go flying everywhere, or blow up their heart in their chest and you get to see it in slow-mo. Or, of course, my favorite shot, you guys know, the one where where their testicles explode, where it's like a slow-mo bullet coming in, and the guy's like, no, I'm frozen in slow motion, and the bullet's like, pfft, and they're like, oh, one of my testicles. Well, at least I have another one in case, oh God, no, the other one. And then, you know, they fall over dead from having their testicles blown off. It's a great game, and there's even an extra mission where you could kill Hitler, possibly by shooting him in the balls. It's a game that allows you, if you wish, kids, to slow-mo shoot Hitler in the balls and have both of his testicles explode. I mean, what other game gives you that? I think that's all any of us want, is to see Hitler's balls explode. That's what I'd do if I could go back in time. But you can't, so the next best thing, Sniper Elite V2.
And then I don't know if you'd consider this one a third-person shooter so much, but it is third-person and you do shoot things. So I'm gonna count it. I'm gonna say Dead Space. Dead Space, I mean, in addition to being just a great game, is one of the best horror games of all time, I would say. And it's just so well constructed. Everything about it is so well designed. The HUD is just completely built into the game, so there's nothing that takes you out of the experience. It's just, it's one of the best horror games ever, and it's one of the best third-person shooters ever.
One of my favorite games that I've played in a while was Splinter Cell Conviction. That was actually the first Splinter Cell game that I really jumped into and like played from beginning to end, and I just loved like the story, the mechanics where you can actually like if you have like a gun with like 6 bullets, you can literally target 6 people and then wait for the right moment to do like an instant takedown. It's like bam, 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 and you're like, oh, snap, you're all dead. But you can only do this mechanic if you had done a silent takedown first. So let's say you're you're hanging on like a window and you see like 5 guys in there. So you mark all 5 of them, and then when one guy comes by, you jump in, do the silent takedown, and then just trigger the button. So then all of a sudden it's like doo 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 doo. Just clear the room. Because Sam Fisher's a badass. That's why. Plus it's a good stealth game. I love a good stealth game, and just everything in that game was great. Like if people didn't know you were there, it was all black and white. You can sneak around. You can like knock on the wall to get someone to walk around, so you can just like reach around and do a silent takedown. Good guns, great story, and it wasn't all stealth. Like there were moments where like you'd want to stealth, but there's like no, pull out your guns because you're gonna be killing a lot of people. Definitely one of my favorites third-person shooters of all time. But really, you got first-person shooters, you got third-person shooters. When are we gonna get a second-person shooter, huh? How exciting will that game be? That's why I'm single, because bad jokes like that.